This episode of Believe is brought to you by Cryptid Coffee Co. Use promo code BELIEVE on checkout for 10% off their Angry Yowie coffee blend. Head over to cryptid.com.au to check them out.
It was just the most massive thing I've ever seen. To tell you the honest truth, I thought, well, we're the only ones left on this planet. Something's happened. We've missed something here.
The fear that went in me when I seen it was just like the feeling. I'd say it was fear, but I've never felt that feeling before in my entire life.
It's a weird feeling, like we can't explain it when you don't know. You feel like you're being followed, but you don't know what it is.
We had two to our right, another one in front of us, another one to the left, and another one just across the road, shaking the daylights out of the tree. All we're getting was big red eyes.
I remember waking up and looking at the end of the bed, and there was a figure there, almost insect-like, and then I blacked out.
Welcome to the show, everyone. My name is Cade Moyer, and you are listening to the Believe Paranormal and UFO podcast. If you have had an encounter and would like to share it, please get in touch with me. My email address is believepod@gmail.com. If you enjoy the podcast, be sure to leave us a rating or review wherever you listen, and head on over to our website, believepod.com, and consider becoming a member to get bonus episodes and video content.
When I was about 19, I was working as a manager in fast food, and it was lunchtime, really busy, people everywhere, just chaos and really loud. But all of a sudden, the sound just completely stopped. Like, I could not hear a thing. I don't know if it was in my ear, in my head, where it came from, but I just heard Kirra. As quickly as the sound shut off, it just snapped back on and everything was normal. No one else heard it. I'm looking around at people and I said, "Did you hear that?" And they're just looking at me as if I was super weird. But because it was just so busy and I had to jump back into work, so I really didn't get to process any of it. But I thought about it a lot. And a little while later after that, at home, I started to see little things in the corner of my eye. I would hear footsteps at nighttime when I was trying to sleep. I had to put a pedestal fan in my room to block that sound out because it just scared me so much. After a while, I would usually switch my bedroom light off and kind of jump into bed. And one night, I switched that light off, jumped into bed, but it felt like I tackled a person. Like I could feel the torso and the arms. And I was so scared, I kind of just was in bed and threw the blankets over my head and just went to sleep. I remember bringing everything up with my dad and my brother. And I was shocked because my brother was like, "Oh yeah, sometimes at night time I'll wake up and I'll see like a face." That scared me. And my dad, he was like, I would feel freezing fingers up my spine, and he is a shift worker, so he would be alone in the house of a day and be asleep. And he said that like he would wake up, watch the door open to his bedroom, and then it would just slam shut. So I was kind of really taken aback that they had their own experiences and they were so casual about it. But it was comforting because I wasn't alone. At Mum and Dad's house, my boyfriend at the time, who's now my husband, he did electrical. So we're at Mum and Dad's and we're by ourselves, and Mum was like, "The smoke detectors keep going off. Can you please change the battery or something?" So he was just putting completely fresh detectors up. And from where he was up on a chair. You can see the front door, like it's not that far away. Anyway, the front door was open, and I said to him, "You have to close the front door because Mum's cats will get outside." They were indoor cats. And he's like, "Oh, sorry, I honestly thought that I had." Anyway, so I went down, closed it, come back, and we're chatting away, and I look, and it's still open. It was open again, and this door was like a solid door. To close it would make like a creaking, loud noise. Anyway, I was like, okay, fine. So I went back down there, shut the door, it's creaking, and this time I locked it. So I pressed the little button in, you can hear it click in. So I went back to my boyfriend, and we're talking again, and his face was just weird. I looked back at the door and it was wide open again. I was like, what the heck is going on? So I went back, I shut it, I locked it, and then I deadlocked it, and that thing clunked. Like, you can hear it clearly lock. Go back again, talking, and I turn around because I was curious. I'm like, and it's wide open again. I was like, what the heck? And we heard nothing, no creaking of the door, no locks undoing or anything. So that always freaked out my husband, who at the time was not a believer at all. One morning, after staying at my boyfriend's house, I went home. Mum, who's the biggest non-believer, she's like, did you come home last night? I'm like, no, I'm just coming home now. She's like, oh, I got up. She was by herself. She said every single light in the house was on. It was about midnight, and the computer was like playing a game. And I was like, oh, Mum, it's a ghost. She's like, oh, don't be stupid. You know, there's always an explanation for it, but you know, that's Mum. I moved out with my boyfriend, who's my husband. I would just wake really random through the night, be looking at our bedroom door. It would open, and I would just watch it close again. And you can hear the handle turning and everything. There was nothing there. And that happened so many times. And I remember going back to my dad, and I said, Dad, when you're asleep through the day, does the door open anymore and shut? And he goes, no, it doesn't. And I'm like, well, now it's happening where I live. And he just laughed. Found it hilarious that possibly this thing had followed me from the house to my new house. And we moved into a new house, and I thought, yep, this is it. Fresh house, no ghost. It was only 12 months old. This is it. It's going to be great. It'll all settle down or just stop. But it didn't take long, and again, I'd wake through the night. The door would open and close again. And where our bedroom was, outside of there, because our kids were up the other end of the house, we had a salt lamp so that if they needed to find us quickly through the night, they could. So you can see everything really clearly from our bedroom to out in the hallway. Anyway, this one night, I wake up, I look at the door, and this time it opens, but I can see like a full silhouette, black, solid figure of a person perfectly, as if like the clothes, the detail, the hair, everything, I could see it, but it was just solid black. And this thing opens the door, closes the door, and walks around to my husband's side of the bed and kind of just stands there like kneeling in towards me, like as if it was trying to say something. And you're in that state where you're awake and you know what's going on, but you're kind of still a bit drowsy. So I didn't really comprehend at the time it was not my husband. I thought it was him, but I had my arm around him the whole time. And I closed my eyes, and straight away I opened them because my brain caught up with what was happening, and it was gone. So straight away the next day I called to book in for a psychic, because I'm one of those people that if I feel a little lost in life, I will call a psychic and just make sure I'm on that right path. The psychic said, I went in, sat down, and the psychic was running late. So she was like, oh, just wait here, rushing around, getting the cards out on the table, that sort of stuff. And she's like, okay, come in. I come in and I sat down, and she said, oh, who's the man in your life? I'm like, well, I'm married. My dad's still here. She's like, no, who's passed? I'm like, I don't really know. I haven't really lost anyone. I mean, my grandfather died when my dad was young. She's like, no, but this person has a message. I'm like, okay. And she goes, it's not going to make any sense to you right now, but it will later. I'm like, oh, here we go. What is it? And she goes, this man, he was in his 30s. He died suddenly at work from a heart attack. His workplace put on like a big funeral for him and looked after the family. And he really wanted the love of his life to know that he wanted to marry her. I was like, okay, no idea, whatever. Let's get back to my reading. So then, yeah, we did our reading and I went home and Jamie's like, as my husband, he said, oh, how was it? I'm like, well, you know, the ghost thing that I saw the other night? And he's like, yeah. I tell him the story and he was like, what? I'm like, what? He's like, my sister's partner died at work from a heart attack and they never married. He described him and like it all was exactly as he'd passed away. Anyway, so that we found that a bit freaky. I never ever passed the message on because the family dynamic on his side is a little bit up and down. But yeah, he wanted to get married to her and they never married. Mum and Dad went away and whenever they go away, I'm always their go-to. Like, can you please look after the animals? Like they've got cats, dogs, chooks, birds, fish. And I'm always that person that has to look after them. They're away. It was Mum's 60th, so it was a few years ago now. I was inside doing the cat things and my husband was down locking the chickens up. And he comes running up like, he's like, oh, I'm so scared. Like there was this weird light on me. I'm not going down there again. And I'm like, stop being dramatic. You know, he'll exaggerate the story a little bit. So I wasn't too into his story. And he's like, come outside. I'm like, okay. Anyway, he's like, look. And I look out and where Mum and Dad's house is, behind them, there is nothing. Like you can see hills. It's just open. And we look up and there's this, I'm guessing, low flying helicopter. That's how far from the ground it was. And I'm going to guess that the size was maybe half a footy field, but in the shape of a triangle. So there was 3 lights, like at the corners of a triangle and one in the middle. And they would flash. And after they would flash, they would simultaneously like move to the next corner. And this went on for 20 minutes. We're just standing there. I grabbed my phone. I'm trying to film it, but it just was not showing up on my phone at all. There was no sound. The kids were like, oh, what is that? I'm like, go inside. But the curiosity got better of them too. And they were kind of looking at it, freaking out. I felt completely just fine with it. Like it was just non-threatening at all. I was really intrigued. And the husband's like, how are you not freaking out? We watched it for ages and then I said, let's go for a drive. Like it's getting late, the kids need to go to bed, but let's go for a quick drive around the other side and make sure there's nothing there. So we drove around, we're looking for drones, kids, torch, something, but there was just nothing. And then we went home and we just talk about it all the time. And we always say, oh, we'd like another encounter like that, but do we?
And now, a quick word from our sponsor. Also, are you wanting more content? Why not become a Believe Plus member? You'll get access to exclusive podcasts and episodes that aren't available to the public. Not only that, you'll also get our regular feed without any ads. Head to believepod.com/plus to sign up today for just $5 a month. What do you think the lights were?
I mean, I can't say for sure. No one can, but like it's obviously a UFO, unidentified, but for sure, I don't know. We looked for something to give us any possible, real explanation, but there was nothing. There was nothing there. And like for drones or whatever to be that synchronized, they'd have to be pretty good. But no, there was nothing.
Does it ever make you wonder that you're being watched?
No, because that was the only thing I've ever seen. The only one time I've ever seen a UFO. So no. I mean, I don't know. It wasn't like it was directly above the house, but very close. It was just cool.
Yeah, it sounds like it's just a super amazing, fantastic encounter.
When you talk to my husband, he's the opposite. He's like, well, when you're down the yard by yourself in pitch black and there's a light shining on you, he goes, you would not be so calm if you come running up like a little girl.
So is he saying that a light was coming from one of these things and hitting him?
Yeah, he said that he was locking the chickens up and the whole backyard just lit up, and he looked up and he could see the triangle and he ran. He's like, the light was directly on him. I'm like, wow.
That is intense. I don't blame your husband for having that type of reaction. That is incredible. I mean, that's borderline like what was going to happen to him.
I know. Crazy.
Does he ever worry about that?
He said at the time he was. Now he looks back and he's like, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I'd still be scared. I'd still be scared because, I mean, seeing a UFO is, rare enough, but to have it kind of focus so heavily on you, I'd definitely be questioning, like, geez, what would have happened if you didn't interfere or he didn't run inside or anything like that?
I know. And I would never believe him if I didn't see it for myself.
Yeah, that's pretty intense. That's the type of UFO encounter that you really dream of, but you never really want to experience.
Yeah, I never thought I would ever have one. And my brother filmed one in Sydney, middle of the day. There was like up with these tall buildings, this, I don't know how to describe this, just this metal object far away. But he actually did film it, and he went and got his neighbour to witness it with him. He just wanted to show someone. But yeah, he has one on that he'd filmed on his, he put on Facebook once. But yeah, so that happened before my experience. So I'm seeing his, I was like, wow, I want my own.
And then you just get one that is literally out of this world. Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it was years later, but yeah.
That's so cool. That's so cool. All right, Kirra, I have to ask you, how did you feel about this thing sitting on your bed? Like, you tried to get into bed, but you feel something solid there.
I was petrified because it's not like I grew up with this, and it all started at the same time. So I was so scared. Like, it felt thin and bony, and I was so scared, and I just put the covers over my head and sort of was so scared and eventually fell asleep. So I'm just saying, I just think it would be some kind of spirit or something. There's no other way to explain it.
Oh, absolutely. So you couldn't see anything there. It was just like this invisible force there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's scary. And do you think this is the same thing that your dad had the experience with?
Oh, I'd say so. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't know how many different ones there were, but yeah, it's something similar, if not the same.
Were you in this? Was this house the same house that always had the smoke detectors going off?
Yeah. So mum and dad have been there for 20-something years, maybe 30. I'm not sure.
Yeah, wow.
But yeah.
That's really cool. That's cool. So I live in a brand new house. I just built a new house, and all the smoke detectors kept going off. And I have these really funky bathroom mirrors that kind of have an LED in it. So you press this button to turn them on and off. And one night, all my smoke detectors went off. All my LED lights in these mirrors were turning on and off like crazy. It was the spookiest thing. And it just, yeah, what you said there is, it's like spot on to made me just remember that moment of my life.
Mm-hmm. Well, husband at the time, he was really skeptic, and he was like, oh, there's just cockroaches in the detectors or whatever. It just kept happening even after he put the new ones in and whatever. Some things I guess you can explain, but I don't know if it was related or not, but that was what was happening alongside all the weird stuff that was happening with me.
What I find really interesting is the fact that your doors were opening and closing without any sound.
I know. That was crazy, but because it happens so often, by the time we'd moved, twice since it first started, I was just so used to it. I would just wake up and hear the handle turn, open, and then shut, and I'd be like, yeah, okay, you hear, whatever, roll over, go to sleep. It just became so normal.
Why do you think this is happening? Do you think something attached itself to you all the way back when you heard that whisper?
I don't know. Maybe. I mean, since I staged the house, it hasn't happened. So I'm really more calm about it now, and I can talk about it's fine. But if it started happening again, I'd be like, oh, here we go.
Do you think there was like any catalyst for it to start happening, or do you think it was all just kind of random?
Just random. Yeah, just random.
It's so weird. It's just like you hear this whisper and everything else kind of just follows after that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's super interesting. And do you feel like there was a connection between the experiences that you've had in the UFO encounter that you had as well?
I wouldn't have said so, only because once I'd staged the house and everything stopped completely, it was quite some time before then I had the UFO experience, and I haven't had anything paranormal since then. So I don't think they're related.
Do you think there's a reason that the paranormal experiences were happening to you and your family?
No idea. No, I don't know.
There's this thing that some people believe in is like ley lines, where a house can be built on a ley line, which is just like a paranormal road is the best way to think of it. And this activity was just happening on that road. And who knows, maybe you moved into a couple of places that had different aspects to that.
Who knows? But it was interesting that Dad experienced the door thing, and then I started to do it when I moved out, and it wasn't happening to him anymore.
Were you a believer of the paranormal before all of this happened?
Yeah, I was. Like, I didn't think I would ever experience anything for myself, but I kind of always felt that there was this, the paranormal was there. And same with UFOs. I always believed that as a kid too. I just felt like it was just, yeah, it's real.
And did it change your perspective of the world after you had these types of encounters? Like, did it make you think that there's more to life than what we currently are experiencing?
Yeah, I think that people will say, where do we go from here with technology and all that sort of thing? And I'll say, I don't think we're meant to be going in the direction we are with technology. I don't think we're meant to have our heads down in our phones. I don't think that's what we're meant to do. I feel like we're meant to go in a direction of spiritual connection and build on that. Because, I know Aboriginal people had a strong connection. I feel like that's sort of where we're meant to go from here. I don't think we're meant to be, taking directions from our phones, if that makes sense.
No, I think that's beautiful. I think that's amazing. And I'm 100% on board with that type of theory, because I was speaking to a gentleman just the other night, actually, and he said something very similar to you, actually. He said that the future of the human race isn't technology based, but it's consciousness based. And, that's very similar to what you're saying.
I feel like if we're going to evolve, we should be evolving towards a more spiritual direction.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Believe Paranormal and UFO podcast. If you have had an encounter and you would like to share it, please get in touch with me. My email address is believepod@gmail.com. Finally, don't forget to follow us on all our social media outlets, and be sure to join our Discord server to talk to other listeners of the show. You'll find all these links in our show notes. Thank you.